Hi, everybody. I'm Skip Elsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime streaming show, where we watch old 16mm films and try to wrap our collective head, around what we just saw. This one's called Witnessing an Accident, but there's no title, and it was written on the can, but it wasn't like official. So I don't know what this is. I really have no idea, and I can't remember where I got this from. This might have been in very early eBay purchases. No documentation in my notes about it, but it's silent, and it looks like it's trying to... I don't know if it's made for the average person or if it's made for police officers, but it's basically saying, like, wow, different people see different things and then can come to a conclusion about what happened based on what they saw. And also, as we know, our brains like to play tricks to make things nice and tidy. So there's that. It's beginning to storm here, so I don't know what's going to happen. We've been having some rolling thunderstorms, and so sometimes the power goes out, or sometimes the internet goes out. So we're just going to go until we can't. And if for some reason I disappear, know that it's not a copyright strike, it's a lightning strike. All right, so the next one we're going to watch is called Making a Mural, and it's pretty great. Enjoy.
One evening, long after business hours, two men, alone on the main floor of a great Midwestern store, discussed the making of a mural to adorn the space above the elevator entrances. These men, president of the store and Tucker's leading painters, having decided on a subject, agree on an immediate start of the work. The artist, in accepting the commission, would lay 5 by 22 feet. He first experiments with rhythmic designs or dynamic patterns, working to create an interesting composition for the area to be covered. Mr. Benton makes many of these before he is satisfied he has a good basic pattern. The final sketch is then elaborated in a rough pencil drawing of Mr. Benton's idea or plan for the mural. The lines of the drawing follow the basic rhythms of the sketch. Next, the pencil drawing is given third dimension in a clay model. The emphasis is not yet on fine detail, but on the overall effect. Modeling in clay is a necessary step in the Benton style of painting, strongly three-dimensional, Renaissance period. It depends in large part on the use of light and shadow. The clay model under diffused light is flat and uninteresting. The group is not drawn together, as it is when a strongly directed light radiates from a central overhead point. Thus, with light, the artist makes the figures stand out from the background and centers the interest. This effect is obvious. Transferred to a small idea for the mural appears for the first time in color. Based on a theme from Greek mythology, it portrays the struggle for the favor of a Greek princess between Hercules and the river god, Achelous, who has assumed the shape of a bull, and is, in this instance, symbolic of man's struggle with the Missouri River and conquest of its broad and fertile valley. This small-scale color panel completes the artist's basic work. Except for details, it appears as the finished mural will appear and will be submitted for the patron's approval. Now, details become important, and the artist calls in live models. He catches tenseness and movement. Shading indicates attention to the third dimension, which is further developed in additional clay models, both of single figures and groups. They show in their greater detail the artist's careful preparation. All of these aids, the clay models and the sketches, are consulted by the artist as he prepares a cartoon or outline drawing of the mural. Every line, every form that will appear in the finished mural is here indicated in miniature. If corrections are to be made, they must be made at this time. The cartoon is of the exact proportions of the planned mural. It is marked off into squares to simplify the transfer of the drawing to the large panel. The squares are numbered and lettered. The completed cartoon also shows the flat color fill-ins, which roughly define the areas of light and shade. And now, with the mural panel set up in his studio, Mr. Benton checks the alignment of the frame which supports the canvas. Then he begins the squaring of the panel. Because of its extreme length, he uses tightly stretched threads for the horizontal lines. For the verticals, lightly drawn charcoal lines. The content of each small square on the cartoon will occupy a corresponding larger square on the mural. In areas where there's a great amount of detail, the squares are subdivided to assure accurate transfer. Then, square by square, the cartoon is transferred to the canvas. After the scaling up process is completed, Mr. Benton prepares his paints. He uses the yolks of eggs as the binder for his pigments. His paint must dry quickly because he is working to meet a time limit. The solvent is made by mixing the yolks with distilled water. It is thoroughly blended with the raw pigment, making a quick-drying tempera color. The mixed paints will not exactly match those of the original small painting, but they must appear to do so at the average viewing distance, which will be about 30 feet. The charcoal lines of the drawing gradually give way to color. In areas of complicated form, Mr. Benton uses brown and white tone masses, technically known as underpainting, to determine the three-dimensional effect on the flat surface. The artist makes frequent reference during the course of the painting to his clay models and sketches to perfect detail. Square by square, paint fills in the outlines of the drawing. Then, after the figures and landscape are filled in, Mr. Benton goes over his work. Deft touches of paint bring out the luminous three-dimensional character of his painting. Mr. Benton uses a diminishing glass for regular appraisal of his colors, through the glass to the size of the small color sketch from which he is working. Thus, even though working in the confines of the effect of the 30-foot viewing distance, 7 distinct tones of blue are required for the sky, from the deep blue of the dome to the hazy blue of the horizon. This sky paint is mixed with a binder of vinylite and beeswax. Although it dries as rapidly as tempera, this binder permits the brushing out and even blending of the paint. Mr. Benton paints in his sky after the figures and objects along the skyline are virtually completed. Painting the figures over the sky background, would cause the colors to lose their proper hue. Again, the artist compares his colors to the original, not to match them, but to make sure they will appear the same on the mural. In the finished sky, all 7 shades of blue are smoothly blended. The mural is apparently complete, but the hand of the master painter is disclosed in a few finishing touches. Now the full 3-dimensional effect is realized. The rhythmic movement of the form shows clearly. Facial expressions are fully developed. And all the colors of the mural are gathered together in the fruits. The result of nearly 8 months of dreaming, planning, and hard work. An old legend of man's struggle to master his environment is brought to life again in Missouri. Finally, the last of several protective coats of wax before the mural is moved to the store. And now framed and mounted on the store's wall, the mural fulfills its function. A lasting contribution to the art of America and of the world.
That's so frustrating. So that's something I got a bunch. There was a long time ago, God, more than 10 years ago, that I heard that Charlotte Mecklenburg Libraries was getting rid of their film collection, and they were having a sale. And I got a list, and I was like, I couldn't make it to the sale, so I wrote the librarian that was in charge of it, and I said, all right, I'll take whatever's left. Like, you sell it for whatever, and then I'll save you a trip to the dumpster, and I'll load up on whatever's left. And in that was fascinating, amazing stuff. Because I figured, like, anybody who's interested in film would pick the stuff that's easy. But I got stuff that I had no idea what it was, and I actually did get my favorite cartoon of all time, Quasi at the Quackadero, a copy of that, which I love, but this was one of them. But the caveat was that the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library, they hired somebody there to put in the little, this is property of the Charlotte Mecklenburg Library, at just before the end, or just before the credits on all the films. So it's really frustrating. It's like, oh my God. So there you go. That's what that is. All right, so behind me I have, behind me I have a film scanner set up, and we're going to watch a film in theory. Here we go. Architectural Careers. Enjoy.
entered university and spent 5 years there. And then when it came to summer work, I decided that it was probably best to work in a number of different firms of varied sizes, and by doing so, I could therefore gain experience in the way offices run. They're all much different, varying from the large to the small.
One of the aspects that characterize the architectural approach of this firm, I think, could be described as total design. To us, this means not only the resolution of the environment from the external point of view, but including the internal spaces, right down to the last ashtray, the draperies, the carpets, the furniture. This approach gives us the opportunity to fully express our thinking in architecture without restricting it to a shell or a partial statement where others could then come in and perhaps obliterate or violate the concept that we have. You might ask, well, how can this be achieved in the field of mass housing where you have a multi-headed client? Well, in many ways, I suppose this can't be achieved in its ultimate sense, but I think in a problem of that sort, we possibly would have to overstate some basic design concepts. In other words, make a strong enough overall statement such that different clients could make use of this space, and because the overall concept is so strong that they could not obliterate or violate the overall sense of the space. In our particular office, as with many offices, we have several types or classifications of people who do different work. We have the people who do the actual drawing or draftsmen. We have the designers. We have people who do administration, specification writers. The designers as such could specialize in interior designing, although the personnel that we appear to attract to our office because of our design philosophy are usually people who are sympathetic to this overall design concept where the interior, exterior design is part and parcel of the whole concept.
Right, okay. I think we can have 2 sets of prints delivered to your office on Friday morning.
Well, does the architect's role face extinction? I don't think so. I think the architect may be on the brink of a new era right now, and how well he can adjust to the changing technologies will determine what role the architect will play in the future role of construction and design. What the architect today has to learn is how to use modern technology, how to make use of these tools and not treat them as enemies. In other words, standardization, modules, computers bring connotations of a very sterile and graph-papered type of facade. And I don't think this is necessarily thing that has to be. I think the computer can be a marvelous tool in the architect's hands. I believe they've developed the computer to such a degree that by programming a plan and the elevations, that it will then immediately produce perspectives that can be viewed from a low angle, a high angle, from this side or from that side. And this is a marvelous tool to use in helping the architect to develop a concept or a structure.
The role of the architect in the world is changing. He's now, instead of being the master builder before, he's now part of the multidisciplinary building team. And therefore, he no longer is the person that was the leader of the building team. He is now part of it.
Nowadays, the architect is a specialist, a member in a team which could involve land economists, real estate consultants, sociologists, psychologists, geographers, all of these disciplines we have at various times worked with, and it's the success in adapting to this new role of working as a member of a highly complex team. I think this success in fitting this new role is what the architect has to work towards.
People are singly the most important element in our architecture. We view them particularly in terms of the activities in which they're involved and the kinds of values that they tend to articulate about the buildings and spaces that we create for them. Landscape architects are people trained to look at activities and social situations, and trained to tell us how to modulate our spaces to better serve the purposes of the people who use them. Don't you think it's about time you started considering the recreational facilities in this area?
Well, yeah, I have been, Stan. I've been looking at, the alternatives.
But God, I mean, putting them all in this corner is really too much.
What do you mean?
We need something that ties together and ties into that park and the recreational facility.
Yeah, I know, but
logical.
it doesn't matter. They don't have to be located there. Look there's a pedestrian street that ties here and cuts across the housing area and connects right through here.
One of the problems, to my mind, that exists within architecture today is what I would call a rather classical view. It's the view of the architect that he is, in one sense or another, a sort of the visual conscience of the nation. He tends to hold his values up as being those values by which the whole of the physical environment should be designed. We feel in our office that this is not a valid view. We feel that people are tremendously diverse and animated, and that they should have or be able to affect the architecture that we create. In that sense, we try to involve them as much as we possibly can. If a person who becomes our client can feel at the end of our business with them, that is, after we have made architecture with him, that he, rather than us, has been the designer.
Once the design and working drawings have been completed and the project has been put out for competitive tendering, and a contractor who has submitted the low tender has been awarded the contract, the architect's administrative role comes to the fore as opposed to his creative role. For instance, the project which the client and the contractor and I are discussing at the moment, this is one aspect of our administrative role. We're discussing a rather major change to the planning on the 13th and 14th floors of this building, floors which haven't been built. They're complete new usage of these floors, and it's involving some hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of construction changes.
There, but you quite realize that the committee must have a firm price and a realistic one. I do hope that you can resolve this, and perhaps by tomorrow you can give me some sort of advice on it.
I think if Phil and I get together and talk about the exact details in here.
Well, you'll have
Air
to
conditioning.
You'll have to excuse
Now,
me. You'll have to get
the architect's role in this negotiation is to make sure that the owner, our client, gets full value for this change. There is no competitive tendering because we already have a contractor on the site and he can submit his own prices. The architect must be in a position to assure the client that the prices are fair and reasonable. So that it's up to you and I to sit down and discuss how we can resolve our price differential.
Yes, well, you see, we had to assume a few things in pricing this proposal we prepared. One was that these book stacks, which you say are deleted, are not reflected as a credit in our costing, as they might be used somewhere else.
This is only one aspect, and while it's major funds involved, it's rather a small part of the total time which the architect spends during the construction period. For example, we figure that on a project such as this or smaller projects, that 20 to 25% of the time, and the architect's time, is spent actually on the site, walking around, looking at the construction, seeing that things are being built in accordance with the drawings and with specifications. By and large, the role of the architect during construction is a very satisfying one. He can see what, in tangible evidence, what he thought was going to happen a year earlier. He can see whether a 40-foot high space really is the kind of space he wanted to see. He can see what 40 feet wide looks like. And sometimes he's disappointed and sometimes he's delighted.
On the rare books, but I guess it's not priority number one with the owner, so we can use a little float time there.
And we'll gain back with the good weather. So we couldn't boil concrete, or the men couldn't work. Winter offers a lot of difficulties at times.
It's not a good idea to pour concrete in cold weather.
Well, you can feed it. When do you think you'll be back on?
Tomorrow morning.
The remaining 75 to 80% of the time is spent within the architect's office, checking contractors' prices for extras or credits to the contract, doing additional drawings which explains the finer details of the room layouts or the color schemes, things which were not necessarily included in detail in the original drawings which the contractor bid upon. Now, this involves not only the architects, but the structural engineers, the mechanical engineers, the electrical engineers. And all of these people who are under the leadership of the architect have their role to play during construction.
Well, I'm presently employed by one of the largest firms as an architectural draftsman, and I feel that by working in a firm like this, one can get varied experience, and at the same time, at one stage or the other, you reach some sort of a dead end that you no longer can move up, and you have learned whatever you can in this field or up to a stage. And then I think one can also, by going to do this technology, as a technologist, one can later on go into graduating as a full-fledged architect by going back to, by going back to university. And by doing this, I think one can acquire varied experience both in technology as well as in design, which of course, when you go to university, that's where the design courses are oriented.
When it came to deciding for a permanent job, I had concerned myself with the thesis on transportation. And as a result, I looked for a firm that was working with a similar sort of thing. The firm I'm presently employed with is doing a very large study for an airport. And consequently, I decided that this would be a very good firm to go with.
Our group represents a fairly large group, and you can see from the size of the projects that we're looking at here, must represent a different approach to architecture than individuals. We have a a staff of over 200 people in this office here. The organization that we have is broken down into people who are involved in pre-design programming and sort of fact-finding analysis for a client. They are sort of research-oriented people. And then following them are the people who do the physical concept design and produce the drawings, the models, the external appearance that a person sees about architecture. From a student's point of view, looking for a university, some universities are still providing courses which were identical with the ones that were offered 15, 20, 25 years ago, and are producing people who are essentially the same kind of people as we had in those years. Other universities are taking a much more objective look at the thing and are providing split degree courses where instead of 5 years leading to a straight Bachelor of Architecture, there are shorter courses, 3 years leading to perhaps a Bachelor of Environmental Studies, and then on through more specialized secondary bachelor degree courses in landscape architecture or conventional architectural degrees or architectural economics, real estate oriented courses, financially oriented or administratively oriented courses. So we are looking for people with specialized educational backgrounds, and we are looking to these forward-thinking universities for this. Students today going into architecture should make themselves aware of the changes in technology that have happened during the past couple of decades, and should really look more towards the future than towards the past and what an architect's going to be doing.
Not come out of the school and merely design buildings straight away. It's a long, hard struggle. It really is.
I think the architect will win out in the end if he's sensitive to what he can do, and that he is the master of these elements, not they of him.
Some hating on the flautist. So that was Canadian, if you didn't gather. And it's Halwyn, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. They've done I have a couple of films that they made about different career choices. I don't think they have flutes in them, but I don't know, maybe we'll pull them out and see. One is in the insurance industry, insurance careers, which is scintillating. The rest, yeah. All right, so let's get you some animation. Let's get you out of that. And this is The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Enjoy.
Mà chị có mọi chị bố chị có quản thì lão đi trong một đường gọi là hòa đuôi quản một cái lực của nhau What for you, boo? For you, what you, boo? Mutkin, you mono. Chicken, put ya what you put that. We don't put that down. 보셔도 우리
All right. It kind of redeemed itself at the end, right? It wasn't totally depressing. So I've been going through boxes of films that don't have anything written on them. I'm like, what is this? What is this? Because sometimes we get a lot of films and we just don't know what is what. Because sometimes we get thousands of film at a time, or two boxes get consolidated and then some information about what's on the film is lost. So we've been trying to watch some of these, and this one is kind of a surprise. I'm going to call it mystery film. It's on the Cintel, and I'm going to run it at slower than real-time speed, and I'll tell you the story. All right. Enjoy. Alright, it's not really behaving for some weird reason. Not sure what's going on here. It's like a tension thing. Hold on. Let me see if I can get this to work right. One second. So I have to adjust the tension here. This is not great. Hold on, let me see if I can do this. Alright, let's see if I can do this. Alright, it's not working. Sorry. There seems to be some tension issues with this Cintel recently, and I'm going to have to figure out what's going on. I'm sorry. Anyways, it was... here's a frame. It looked like some animation that I did. I don't know when. I don't know if it was... it might have been in college, where you write on film. And so I'm going to have to play with this, and maybe tomorrow I'll set it up and we can watch it. Thanks for tuning in today. Variety of different things we watched. And I'm going to... Wow. I just realized that you can support our efforts by... let me fix that. Anyways, you can support our efforts by, 1, hitting the like button, hitting the thumbs up button, hitting the subscribe, telling other people about what you're doing or what I'm doing. You can also go to ko-fi.com/avgeeks to buy us coffee, which we will drink. And then you can also go to our brand new channel, which is at channel.avgeeks.com. And it's pretty great. We're going 24/7 with a bunch of stuff. Previous shows that we've done, and over 3,000 films that we have scanned and put online. And it's 24/7, and you can watch. And there's a couple of ads on the page to kind of help pay the bills. But thanks for watching, and we will see you soon. Soon being tomorrow. Everybody take care.